In the sprawling hills of Northern California, where fog rolled in like secrets from the Pacific and the air carried the faint scent of eucalyptus mixed with the sharp tang of wealth, Lena Washington stepped through the wrought iron gates of the Hale estate for the first time, her worn sneakers squeaking softly on the polished marble driveway that stretched like a vein toward the heart of a mansion built from glass and steel, a modernist fortress designed by some award-winning architect whose name she'd never heard, but whose creation screamed isolation wrapped in luxury, with floor-to-ceiling windows reflecting the manicured lawns and infinity pools that overlooked valleys dotted with vineyards owned by tech tycoons like her new employer, Victor Hale, a man whose fortune came from algorithms that predicted consumer desires before they even knew them themselves. His company, a behemoth in data analytics that powered everything from shopping apps to surveillance systems. Yet here in this private world, Lena felt the weight of invisibility settle on her shoulders like an old coat. Her uniform, a crisp white blouse and black slacks handed to her by the head housekeeper with a curt nod and a list of rules longer than her resume, rules about not speaking unless spoken to, not entering certain wings without clearance, and always keeping her head down, because in places like this, maids were shadows, not people, and Lena at 32, with skin the color of rich earth and hair twisted into neat braids that hid the exhaustion from years of scraping by, knew that role all too well, having grown up in the crowded apartments of Oakland where her single mother juggled 3 jobs to keep the lights on, teaching Lena early that survival meant blending in, meant swallowing pride like bitter medicine, especially after her dreams of nursing school shattered under the burden of student loans and a surprise pregnancy at 19, leaving her to raise her son Jamal alone while bouncing between cleaning gigs in high-rises and hotels, gigs where she'd wipe away the remnants of other people's lives, spilled wine, crumpled receipts, forgotten jewelry, wondering if anyone ever noticed the hands that made their world spotless. And now, as she navigated the echoing foyer with its abstract art pieces worth more than her lifetime earnings, she carried a bucket of supplies up the grand staircase, her arms aching but her mind sharp, observing the subtle rhythms of the household, the butlers in their starched shirts murmuring about delivery schedules, the nanny scrolling on her phone in the kitchen while sipping lattes from a machine that cost as much as a car, and the faint echoes of a child's laughter drifting from the upper floors, a sound that tugged at Lena's heart because it reminded her of Jamal's giggles back home with her sister watching him while she worked these long shifts that started at dawn and ended when the stars pierced the fog. And as she dusted the bookshelves in the library, a room filled with leather-bound volumes on innovation and disruption that Victor probably never cracked open, she caught her first glimpse of Aria, the billionaire's 8-year-old daughter, a slip of a girl with pale cheeks and wide eyes framed by glasses, sitting in a sunlit alcove with a nebulizer mask strapped to her face, her small chest rising and falling in labored breaths as asthma gripped her like an invisible vice. A condition Lena recognized from her own neighborhood where kids wheezed through polluted air and inadequate care. But here, in this palace of plenty, it seemed out of place, almost cruel, with medications lined up on a silver tray like offerings to some indifferent god. And Aria looked up, her gaze meeting Lena's for a fleeting moment, a silent plea hidden behind a weak smile, as if the girl sensed a kindred spirit in this new face, someone who didn't avert their eyes or hurry past, and Lena paused, her cloth hovering over a crystal vase, whispering a soft hello that drew a nod from Aria, who set down her drawing pad filled with sketches of birds in flight, symbols perhaps of the freedom her body denied her. And in that instant, a thread connected them, fragile but real, amid the staff's indifferent chatter downstairs where the gardeners debated fertilizer brands and the chefs prepped organic meals no one truly savored, whispers floating up like smoke about how Victor was always jetting off to board meetings in New York or Tokyo, leaving Aria to her devices and her ailments, with the nanny complaining about the girl's episodes disrupting her schedule, and the head housekeeper rolling her eyes at the latest prescription deliveries, dismissing them as just another thing to dust around. Racial undercurrents simmering beneath it all, as Lena overheard snide remarks about hiring from the city, implying she was a diversity quota rather than a capable worker, microaggressions that stung like paper cuts, reminding her of the barriers she'd faced in interviews where her qualifications were questioned despite glowing references. But Lena swallowed it down, focusing instead on the small acts of kindness she could offer, like leaving extra pillows in Arya's room or arranging her toys in playful patterns that elicited faint giggles, building a quiet bond in the shadows of the estate where high-tech security cameras watched every corner, their red lights blinking like judgmental eyes. And Victor himself remained a ghost, glimpsed only in passing as he strode through halls, barking orders into his earpiece. His world a bubble of conference calls and stock tickers, oblivious to the fragility upstairs where Arya's coughs echoed faintly at night, a sound Lena lay awake listening to from her cramped quarters in the staff wing, her mind racing with memories of her own son's fevers, and the ER waits without insurance, vowing silently to keep an eye on the girl, sensing the brewing storm in her labored breaths and the household's willful blindness, the whispers in the shadows growing louder with each passing hour, hinting at cracks in the facade of perfection, where luxury masked neglect and one woman's quiet vigilance might soon shatter the silence forever, as the fog thickened outside, cloaking the estate in mystery and foreshadowing the chaos to come. Lena's resolve hardening like steel forged in the fires of her past hardships, ready to face whatever lay hidden in the opulent gloom. In the sterile hush of the Hale Estate's upper wing, where the air hummed with the soft whir of air purifiers designed to filter out every imperfection, Lena Washington felt a chill creep up her spine as she rounded the corner to Arya's playroom, her mop bucket forgotten in the hallway amid the scent of lemon polish that masked the underlying mustiness of disuse. And there, sprawled on the plush rug patterned with stars and moons, was Arya, her tiny frame convulsing in silent agony, cheeks flushed red and lips turning a terrifying shade of blue as she gasped for air that refused to come, her inhaler clutched loosely in one hand like a lifeline that had snapped. The asthma attack hitting with the ferocity of a sudden storm, waves of wheezes escaping her throat in ragged bursts that echoed Lena's worst nightmares from her own son's childhood bouts with allergies in their cramped apartment, and without a second's hesitation, Lena dropped to her knees, her heart slamming against her ribs like a trapped bird, scooping Arya up gently but firmly, whispering urgent reassurances through gritted teeth. Breathe, baby. Just breathe. I'm here. As she fumbled for the emergency button on the wall panel, pressing it repeatedly until the light flashed red, but no alarm blared, no footsteps thundered up the stairs, only the mocking silence of a system more concerned with protocol than panic. And Lena's mind raced, recalling the staff meeting where the head housekeeper had droned on about proper channels for incidents, channels that now felt like chains binding her hands. So she bolted from the room with Arya cradled against her chest, the girl's weight featherlight yet crushing under the urgency, descending the grand staircase, 2 steps at a time, her sneakers slipping on the marble but propelling her forward into the kitchen where the chefs chopped vegetables with mechanical precision and the nanny lounged against the counter scrolling through social media, her face illuminated by the glow of filtered selfies. And Lena burst in, voice cracking like thunder. Arya's having an attack. Call 911 now. She's not breathing right. But the nanny glanced up with annoyance etched in her brows, waving a manicured hand dismissively. There's a protocol for this. The on-call doctor is notified automatically. Just put her back in her room. And the chefs exchanged glances without pausing their knives, one muttering under his breath about not our department, the indifference hitting Lena like a slap, fueling a fire in her gut born from years of being dismissed in waiting rooms and welfare offices where her pleas for help fell on deaf ears, racial biases lurking in the subtext of their nonchalance, as if a black maid's alarm was overreaction rather than reality, and with Arya's gasps growing shallower, her eyes fluttering in terror, Lena's moral compass spun wildly, the ethical dilemma clawing at her: follow rules and risk a child's life, or break them and face ruin. But the choice crystallized in an instant, her son's face flashing before her eyes, the what-ifs of inaction too horrifying to bear. So she spun on her heel, racing toward Victor's private garage wing, a forbidden zone guarded by biometric locks and cameras that she knew from overheard. Whispers had overrides in the utility closet, and with Arya's head lolling against her shoulder, Lena yanked open the closet door. Spotting the emergency key card taped to the inside panel, a oversight she'd noticed while restocking supplies, swiping it with trembling fingers to bypass the security, the door hissing open to reveal a fleet of gleaming vehicles, including Victor's prized Lamborghini, its keys dangling from a hook labeled with executive flair, and beside them on a shelf, a emergency cash drawer left unlocked in arrogance, stuffed with crisp bills for petty expenses or bribes. She didn't know, but she grabbed a fistful enough for contingencies, her mind rationalizing it as borrowing for survival, not theft, shoving it into her pocket before easing Arya into the passenger seat, buckling her with care as the girl's wheezes turned to whimpers. "Hang on, sweetie, we're going." And Lena slid behind the wheel, the engine roaring to life with a predatory growl that mirrored her adrenaline, tires screeching as she peeled out of the underground garage, the estate's automated gates parting just in time from the override code she'd glimpsed on a memo, bursting onto the winding hill roads where fog clung like doubt, her foot heavy on the accelerator, weaving through traffic with horns blaring in protest, the Lamborghini's speed a double-edged sword that cut through delays but drew eyes, and in her rearview mirror she spotted the first signs of pursuit: two sleek black sedans emerging from the estate's drive, their lights flashing ominously as security mobilized, tracking the vehicle's GPS implant that Lena hadn't thought to disable, the chase unfolding like a nightmare on the serpentine paths, sedans gaining with professional precision, one pulling alongside to flash badges through tinted windows, shouting for her to pull over. But Lena swerved, her focus laser sharp on the hospital sign glowing in the distance, Arya's hand clutching hers weakly across the console, a silent plea that drowned out the sirens now wailing behind as local police joined the fray from a radioed alert. The ethical weight pressing harder with every mile. Am I a savior or a criminal? Will they see a desperate woman or a thief? The cash burning in her pocket like evidence of guilt, and as the hospital loomed, Lena screeched into the ER bay, slamming on brakes that smoked in defiance, leaping out to yank Arya free, cradling her as she charged through the automatic doors into the chaos of beeps and shouts. "Help! Asthma attack! She's a child! Please!" Nurses swarming like angels in scrubs, wheeling Arya away on a gurney with oxygen masks and IV lines, doctors barking orders for epinephrine and steroids, and Lena collapsed against the wall, breath ragged, only to feel rough hands grab her arms, security from the estate pinning her down with cuffs, clicking cold against her wrists, their voices accusing, "You're under arrest for grand theft auto and embezzlement." As media alerts pinged on phones around her, leaks from the staff painting her as a kidnapper, headlines brewing with racial undertones of black employee steals from billionaire employer, Victor's private jet touching down miles away with him oblivious until his phone exploded with notifications, his initial fury boiling over in clipped commands to his team: get her locked up, protect Arya, the confrontation looming like a shadow as police arrived to formalize the arrest, Lena's world narrowing to the holding area's fluorescent glare, her thoughts a whirlwind of regret and righteousness, the chase's adrenaline fading into a hollow ache, knowing she'd saved a life, but wondering at what cost, the silence of the estate's failures now racing toward an explosive reckoning. In the gleaming conference room of Victor Hale's corporate headquarters overlooking the San Francisco Bay, where floor-to-ceiling screens displayed scrolling data streams and the air hummed with the subtle buzz of innovation, the revelation hit like a seismic shift. Victor, bursting through the doors, still in his travel-worn suit, his face a mask of controlled fury giving way to raw vulnerability as the ER doctor pulled him aside in a hushed corridor away from prying eyes, explaining in measured tones how Arya's asthma had escalated into a near-fatal obstruction, her airways closing like a vice from unchecked inflammation, and how Lena's swift intervention, defying all odds with that daring drive, had delivered her just in time for life-saving nebulizers and steroids to take effect, the words she wouldn't have made it otherwise hanging heavy, piercing Victor's armor of detachment built from years of boardroom battles and solitary successes, his mind flashing to missed bedtime stories and overlooked doctor's notes buried in emails, a father's guilt crashing over him like waves against the Golden Gate, and in that moment he demanded to see Lena. Striding past security to the holding area where she sat cuffed to a bench, her eyes defiant yet weary, and without a word, he signaled for the restraints to be removed, his voice low but firm as he uttered, "You saved her," the first crack in his facade, leading to a quiet conversation where Lena, voice steady despite the chaos, recounted the staff's inaction and her desperate choice, her words not accusatory but factual, stirring something profound in Victor. A reevaluation of his insulated life where efficiency trumped empathy, and as Arya stabilized in her room, monitors beeping in rhythmic assurance, Victor orchestrated the next steps with the precision of a CEO pivoting a failing venture, first calling off the charges through his legal team who flooded the precinct with affidavits of extenuating circumstances, then arranging for Lena's release with apologies from the officers who'd acted on incomplete intel, the media storm already brewing outside with reporters camping at the hospital gates, viral posts speculating on the dramatic rescue turned to rest with hashtags trending about class divides and heroic acts, societal discussions igniting on forums and talk shows about how wealth creates blind spots to human needs, pundits debating the ethics of breaking barriers for the greater good and the racial lenses through which such stories are viewed, often casting figures like Lena as suspects before saviors, and Victor, sensing the narrative's power, decided to seize it, scheduling a press conference for the following morning on the estate's grand lawn under clear skies, microphones clustered like eager listeners as he stood at the podium flanked by Arya's doctors and community leaders he'd rallied overnight. His opening statement, a masterclass in humility, admitting his own oversights and family priorities and praising Lena's courage as the true force that preserved his world. She didn't hesitate when systems failed. She acted with heart, and in doing so, exposed the gaps we all must bridge. The cameras capturing Lena beside him in a simple sundress provided by his assistant, her presence a symbol of elevation, and in a move that shocked the assembled crowd and online viewers alike, Victor announced the creation of a pediatric health initiative funded by his foundation, appointing Lena as its director with a generous salary and resources to advocate for accessible care in underserved areas, drawing from her lived experiences to shape programs that trained household staff in emergency responses and partnered with clinics for free screenings, the applause rippling through the air as social media exploded with support, influencers sharing clips that humanized the story and sparked donations pouring in, broader impacts unfolding as corporations reviewed their protocols inspired by the tale, with Victor facing internal audits that revealed lapses in employee empowerment, leading to reforms like mandatory first aid certification and anonymous reporting lines. And in quieter corners, Lena navigated her new reality with grace, mentoring young professionals from similar backgrounds through workshops at local centers, her son Jamal beaming with pride during visits to the estate, now transformed into a hub of activity rather than isolation, Arya's recovery, fostering genuine bonds as she and Lena shared afternoons in the garden discussing dreams and drawings. The girls' laughter, a melody of renewal, and as policy advocates cited the incident in pushes for statewide health equity bills, emphasizing how one act rippled into systemic shifts. Victor reflected in late-night walks along the bay, his philanthropy pivoting toward community-focused ventures like scholarships for aspiring caregivers. The echoes of change resonating in boardrooms and barrios alike, where stories like Lena's became beacons for dialogue on unity across divides, inspiring art installations and documentaries that captured the essence of unexpected alliances, with Lena herself speaking at conferences about resilience born from necessity, her voice carrying the weight of transformation without bitterness, encouraging others to see potential in every overlooked corner. The Foundation's first gala, drawing diverse crowds under starlit skies, toasts raised to progress and the quiet forces that drive it. Victor stepping back to let Lena shine, his redemption a quiet undercurrent to her ascent, the societal tapestry woven tighter through threads of compassion and accountability, leaving a legacy where barriers once stood now bridged by shared humanity. The bay's waters reflecting a horizon brighter for the journey taken, a testament to how one bold step could illuminate paths for many, fostering a world where acts of kindness redefine power and purpose.